NFLMAX Radio has returned. Back from the dead and crawling out of our zombie graves tonight with a special holiday episode as promised. Broadcasting live from Haddonfield, Illinois on this Halloween evening. We're going to take a look at the trade deadline transactions with some haunting hot takes and find out which of these trades will be a trick or a treat for some NFL teams this year. So, we're back taking over your YouTube airways tonight. And as always, Ewok Juggernauts here with the hot X.
Nick, what's going on, man?
I'm ready to get a little hot in here. And you know what? Glad to have you back. As weird as that is to say, I wasn't going to admit it, but I'll put it on record. Glad you're back.
I'm glad to be back. It's great to be back. And, speaking of hot, coming from the hot Bahamas, when I saw that cold New York City skyline on the way back, was not a happy camper, but nonetheless, we're back and the NFL Max is back. So this past week, the NFL trade deadline has come and gone. And just wanted to touch on a bunch of the transactions that happened over this past week. And we'll start off with Houston and Denver here.
Let's just jump into it.
You're Denver, and your doorbell rings. And there's some trick-or-treaters outside with their bags open wide, ready for some tricks or some treats. And Houston is wanting a fourth-round pick for Demaryius Thomas. And they're swapping seventh-rounders in 2019. And they're going to give the Broncos a fourth-round pick for Demaryius Thomas. Right off the bat, we both talked about DT over this past season and his gradual decline over the past few years. Thoughts on Demaryius Thomas in Houston before we go to Denver and what's going on over there? So, bringing him to that offense, obviously it's an upgraded quarterback with the GOAT, Deshaun Watson, thrown to him, and DeAndre Hopkins on the other side, drawing the double coverage. So, my thoughts initially, for this year at least, it's an uptick for Demaryius Thomas, even though, he's shown signs of decline. But the rest of the way, what do you think for Demaryius Thomas for the second half of the season?
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, it's definitely an upgrade at quarterback. There's no question about that. Deshaun Watson is a significantly better quarterback than Case Keenum. And, I've said it a couple times on here. I think DT is done. He's lost a step. When I say that, that's in relative comparison to what he was. He's obviously not done. He still has a little bit left in the tank. He can still produce. And when you see players go from a situation where, he was drafted by the Broncos. He's been a lifelong Bronco so far. All of a sudden, he gets shipped mid-season to a team who has a pretty good stronghold on that division right now. You go to a team with a young, vibrant quarterback. You got a legitimate number one. You're no longer pressured to be the number one in that system anymore. He was running X for Denver, even though Sanders was out producing him and he had a legitimate wide receiver across from him. He was pressured to be the guy there in Denver. And it wasn't happening this year. So now he goes to a situation in Houston where he has DeAndre Hopkins across from him, arguably the best wide receiver in the game. He's going to tilt coverage that way. And it's funny, when guys go places like this, all of a sudden you see a resurgence. You can pretty much will yourself through 8 weeks if you've got a shot at the playoffs. And I think that's what we're going to kind of see here. I think we're going to see DT get a little pep in his step. We're going to see everything that he has left in the tank, and it's going to give us clarity on his stock moving forward. I'm kind of excited to watch these 8 weeks. I don't have any Demaryius shares. I'm not going to go buying them because I still think he's done relative to where he was and the price that you have to pay for name cachet alone. I don't think people are just letting him go, especially not now that he's in Houston. But, it's going to be interesting to see, and it will definitely give clarity on what he has left in the tank. It's going to give us a good idea is he even someone that we should consider if you're doing a startup next year, even in the later rounds or the mid rounds? Is he someone that we should target, and is he worth even holding on our rosters at this point, or should we kind of escape, backdoor and get what we can get on name cachet while he still has some?
So quick take, a trick or a treat, Demaryius Thomas?
I'm going to say he is a trick.
Yeah, I agree. Demaryius Thomas is definitely a trick for me. You'll be lucky if you get wide receiver 2 numbers out of him the rest of the way. So, and for Dynasty, forget it. I mean, party's over. So let's go to Denver. And, with Demaryius Thomas leaving, here we go. My number 1 rookie wide receiver. This opens the door for my dude, Courtland Sutton. Wheels up for Courtland Sutton. And in your redraft leagues, pick him up now if you don't have him already. But Dynasty, here we go. It has begun. The Courtland Sutton show has begun. I was listening to John Elway talk about him today in his meeting on the radio, and he's flat out said it. Courtland Sutton, they expect him to fill the role and to produce right away. And they feel like he's been groomed and been ready to go. So Courtland Sutton's going to play that split end X role, the Demaryius Thomas role, with Sanders on the outside. And it has begun. I mean, I'm so excited about Courtland Sutton and to see what he can do the rest of the way. And he's already been producing. I mean, you take away, he was seeing like 3 to 6 targets a week. Now with, DT gone, that's an extra, 4 or 5 targets. So, I mean, we could be possibly looking at here, possibly double-digit targets the rest of the way. And that's, going to be incredible for him. So thoughts on Courtland Sutton here?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely from a dynasty perspective, always fun to watch, your first round picks kind of come to fruition year 1. And he's been, I've said it on here, his catch radius is ridiculous. He's a super athlete. Like, I think he was underrated through the draft process. I don't think he should have been going back half behind Ronald Jones or even Calvin Ridley. I'm willing to eat a little bit of crow on Calvin Ridley. However, I still think I have, and we'll talk about our rookie wide receiver re-ranks a little bit later in the show, but I have, DJ Moore, Kirk, and Courtland Sutton all in a tier of their own. They're all in the same tier for me in tier 1. And it's fun because I think this wide receiver class as a whole was underrated throughout the entire process, and for good reason. The running backs were as strong as they are. And, we're starting to see those come to fruition too. But this rookie class as a whole is really fun to watch develop. You're even seeing some second round picks, at the tight end position with Goddard and Mark Andrews and Hurst, some of those guys starting to come to light, and even the quarterbacks. So this rookie class has been a really fun one to watch, and Courtland Sutton is no exception. I'm super excited to watch him, move forward. I don't know that you're going to see uber production for the rest of this year. I think he's going to have a pretty safe floor, but I wouldn't expect anything crazy. And you don't want to put those expectations on a rookie first round pick on your dynasty team. If you're a good owner, you probably got to pick him in the later part of the first round, picks 8 to 12. And so at that point, if you're picking that late in the draft, you're probably not relying on him in your lineup anyway. So that's the perfect kind of situation for a guy like Sutton.
Yeah, I mean, we're 8 weeks through the season already. 37 targets, 17 receptions for 324 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, the athleticism is through the roof. 6'3", 218 pounds, top 5 percentile 3-cone with a 6.57, runs a 4.5. And his catch radius, like you said, is through the roof, 10.27. So the athleticism's there, the pedigree's there, and the college production's there. So,
yeah, and until his senior year, he was, consensus, going into it, one of the top 3 guys going into the. Obviously, he was behind Saquon and probably, Chubb, but he was, and Geis maybe, but he was a top 4 consensus pick in Devy leagues. Moving even when he was at his sophomore year at SMU. There was talk like this guy is legit. He could be the number 1 overall pick in rookie drafts, and then he slowly faded a little bit. Just due to playing at SMU and the competition he faced. But I mean, he's dominated at every level he's been at, and it doesn't seem like the NFL is going to be any different. He's definitely has the traits of a number 1 wide receiver, and he profiles exactly into that role that Demaryius was playing. Physical, big, with a nice catch radius, and he can high point. He can go get the ball.
Absolutely. And if you're looking down the stretch here, fantasy playoffs, he's got to face San Francisco, Cleveland, and Oakland.
Yep, and that's exactly why I picked him up in redraft last week.
Yeah, and we were talking about this over the summer. I mean, everybody was talking about this over the summer about Courtland Sutton getting his due, and next year Demaryius Thomas and or Sanders being gone, and here we are. It's in the middle of the season, and DT's already gone, and it's happening already. And a lot of people were talking about Deshaun Hamilton playing that Sanders role, but I don't think Sanders is leaving. I think he'll be there next year too. But real quick, trade finder here. Courtland Sutton for Kerryon Johnson. Which side you taking?
I'm taking Kerryon. I'm still going to take Kerryon. I'm not going to give up a running back in the production that a solid 3-down back could give you. I'm going to take my shot on Kerryon.
Courtland Sutton, Mike Gesicki for Golden Tate and Jimmy Graham.
No, I'm taking Courtland Sutton all day.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. And
one last one here. 2019 first round pick and Courtland Sutton for AB.
That's a tough one. It depends. That's from a standpoint of where are you? Are you a competitor? Because if you're like a legit competitive team, then AB is a tier 1 wide receiver for me, dead red. If I'm not, if I'm kind of in the middle, if I'm a middling team, or if I'm clearly rebuilding, then I'm taking Courtland Sutton in the first.
Yeah, that was a NFLMAX league trade offer today. So speaking of Golden Tate, we just mentioned him. He got traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, and they sent Detroit a 2019 third round pick. So here we go. The Eagles, the Super Bowl defending champions, bringing in another weapon for Carson Wentz and the crew. And, man, Philly is just looking ridiculous now. They got Alshon Jeffrey playing, the outside, and now Golden Tate, who can play anywhere. He could play the Z, he could play the slot. And, I call him the god of yak. He is the GOAT of yards after the catch. And for a third round pick, man, Philly's looking nice right now. But let's, before we get into that, let's just remind everybody how important Golden Tate was to Detroit in their offense. He was a 28% target share in that offense. So it's going to be very interesting because he's very volume based as a wide receiver, doesn't score a lot of touchdowns, makes his money after the catch on the ground. And again, with that low touchdown volume, obviously going to help Philly, but this hurts. This hurts Detroit. It hurts Stafford. Obviously it helps a couple of wide receivers we'll mention in a few seconds here, but thoughts on Golden Tate going to Philly?
Yeah, there's definitely some interesting implications here. One of the things that my buddy Charles, who was on the pod last week, we did the bro pod together. What did we call it? The broadcast.
The broadcast.
The broadcast. He was on here last week. He, just in our text chain with another friend, John, he had mentioned that it's interesting because Philly trades a third round pick, and obviously Tate is a free agent after the year. I'm not sure if there's any intentions to keep him, and one reason would be they traded a third round pick, but if you don't sign a significant amount of free agents, he then can garner compensation of a fourth round pick. So essentially they trade Detroit a third and they can get back a fourth. And that's under the assumption that Philly doesn't spend a ton of money because they're right up against that cap, which they probably won't sign a ton of free agents. So really, this is an 8-week rental for Philly where they give up a third and they'll get back a fourth and a compensation. So it's about, a round of a drop, a little bit over a round because compensation's at the back end. But still, I mean, for an 8-week rental, you're going to make a push. I don't think Washington is that strong of a team. I really don't. They're doing just enough to beat their opponents. They're good on the defensive side of the ball, but I can't see AP lasting much longer. You're already kind of seeing him start to look like he's going to flame out. And then, of course, he comes and he busts that long run at the end of the game. But I can't see him being able to sustain that offense by himself. And right now, that's really what's happening. There's little to no impact from the wide receiver position in Washington. So Philly's going for it. And you know what? Kudos to them. I commend them. It's a shrewd move, but it's definitely seems to be just a rental. They don't have any long-term plans for Tate. That could change, based on his production over the next 8 weeks, but it's definitely going to help them. And as far as from a fantasy standpoint for Philly trading for Tate, it kills any and all value that Aguilar had. Coming off last year, he's the writing again. If you were looking at the circumstance, I don't know if I had mentioned it on the pod, but I had talked to Charles, and I told him that goal number one after last week was to sell all of your Aguilar shares. Like that was the number one thing I was doing. I was going through my teams. I had 2 shares and I sold both. Because when they tried to offer that second for Cooper, the writing was on the wall. They don't see Aguilar as, a staple in their offense. He hasn't been producing, and this just, shored that up. He is, plus the Jordan Matthews targets and production. I mean, Jordan Matthews, and I know he used to be an Eagle, but I mean, that should tell you all you need to see about Aguilar and how they're really feeling about him at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to piggyback on that, it was a genius move by Philly. And obviously, like you said, Nelson Aguilar is taking a big hit. But I mean, I don't think many people were really counting on Aguilar. I mean, if you're counting on Aguilar, you've got some wide receiver problems on your depth.
And see, I would disagree. I think coming into the year, he was valued pretty highly as a startup pick. Like people were thinking he was a pretty, based off his last year and in that offense with Wentz, he was a solid wide receiver 2-3 for people coming into this year. And he's just not that. He hasn't been that, and he won't probably ever be that again in Philadelphia.
Yeah. And, it was just a year ago. He had a hot start the first half of the season in 2017. So people remember that. So you got Jeffrey playing the outside, Golden Tate moving around the field, and I guess Matthews and Aguilar will be splitting time in the slot. But with those 4 wide receivers and, the 2 tight ends that they have, Carson Wentz should eat the rest of the season with those weapons. But, on the flip side, let's go to Detroit. So now Detroit trades away Golden Tate. And like I said, 28% of their target share in their offense, in their passing game. So he's gone. So obviously you got Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay. And, in my opinion, Kenny Galladay is the alpha dog in Detroit. I don't care. Marvin Jones just had 2 touchdowns on Sunday with 100 yards, but Kenny Galladay is the dude. That's the guy they're going to, funnel this passing game through now. And they really don't have a tight end of relevance. So it's going to be very interesting what they do with that 3rd wide receiver spot. And, we joked around today back and forth about Theo Riddick possibly playing wide receiver.
No, not possibly. It's going to happen. I can bet you that's the plan, is that they see the value that they have in Carry On as a pass catcher over the past 2 weeks. They are going to put Theo Riddick in the slot. They're going to split him out, and they're going to find a way to get both of these guys on the field on passing downs. They should. It
would be incredible. I mean, I don't really know much about TJ Jones. I don't have much on him, but that's what they're saying. They're going to use him, TJ Jones. But man, Theo Riddick is incredible. He is so electric in the open field. So if they can do that, a la Ty Montgomery, something like that.
Did you just have a good thing to say about a Lions running back?
I did.
Oh man, it's the wrong one, but that's fine.
It's a rarity. Nobody's better than Barry, but we won't talk about Barry. So I don't know. You want to talk a little bit about Kenny Galladay? I know we mentioned before in previous podcasts that we don't need to talk about Marvin Jones. Everybody knows who he is. But Kenny Galladay, the stage is set here for him to lead this receiving game and be the alpha dog. So what do you think? Do you think he could do it? Can he overtake Marvin Jones in the depth chart?
I think he can. I think he's super talented. I think he's got the size. He's got the athleticism. I do think that he is talented enough. I'm not sure that he'll overtake Marvin Jones necessarily. I think they may run like Tate and Jones did, where it's a 1A, 1B type of situation. I think both of these guys are going to be productive. I think Stafford does enough and is a competent enough quarterback where he can move the ball around the field and make both of these guys fantasy viable. I mean, he was carrying 3 wide receivers for a while. So I don't, see any hindrance to Marvin Jones or not hindrance. I mean, if anything, this opens it up for Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay. Just obviously he gets a nice boost with Tate gone, and you kind of, for wide receiver production, want the formula of no real tight ends. So from a fantasy perspective, this is the perfect situation for them. You took that third mouth out of the equation, and now you have the 2 guys with minimal competition at the tight end to suck up any sort of targets. So I would not at all be surprised if they do split Riddick out wide and he starts to play kind of that Ty Montgomery role where you can split him out and he becomes, essentially a wide receiver from the running back position. And you get him and Kerryon on the field at both at one time during passing situations. I wouldn't be shocked to see that. In fact, I'm kind of expecting it.
I would love it. As a Detroit Lions fan, it would be incredible to watch. And don't forget Luke Wilson, but he's, like I said, both of those guys are just, come on.
Yeah.
So, that'll be it for Detroit. But just to go flip back here real quick with that trade with Philly, all week we heard rumors for weeks now, actually, LaShawn McCoy going to the Eagles from Buffalo. And it didn't happen. I actually thought it was really going to happen. It would have been a great story. And it would have been a perfect trade to get him out of there. I don't know why the Bills kept McCoy on that roster, why they didn't trade him.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense.
It doesn't. They're in an obvious rebuild mode here, and McCoy's got some juice left. But they didn't do it. They didn't make the trade. They didn't address the position at all. And we're looking at a running back by committee here in Philly. While we're in Detroit here, to finish up here, Kerryon Johnson. Now, the dynasty community is madly in love with Kerryon Johnson.
They weren't always, though.
They weren't always. And I wasn't always either.
That's a mistake.
Well, for the record, let's get this clear before we begin this. I always thought Kerryon Johnson was good. I just never thought he was an elite prospect or had the potential to be a top elite running back. And there's still many running backs that I would rather have over Kerryon Johnson. And I can name 12 that I would rather have. So in my opinion, he's not an RB1. He has the potential to flash and have weeks, RB1 weeks, but in its entirety on the season, I can't see him finishing as an RB1. So let's talk about him. Kerryon Johnson. I know you got the man crush going here. Where do you begin with this guy?
I love him. I think, the one thing that Kerryon brings to the table that a lot of these guys don't is he was, top 10% in both rushing and receiving in the model. So he is a guy who can do it all. I mean, he is the true definition of a 3-down back. He's prototypically sized. He can run the ball between the tackles. You see it. You watch the burst. And then he can also catch the ball out of the backfield. And I think that's a big reason that you saw this Golden Tate trade, and you can make it with confidence because if you split Riddick into the slot, Kerryon can do it out of the backfield. It was like last week, all of a sudden they just forgot that Kerryon could catch the ball, and then all of a sudden they threw him 6 targets, receptions, and he's dynamic. He's dynamic in every aspect of the game. I mean, he can block, he can catch, he can run. I'm super excited about his prospects. He's a guy who doesn't have to leave the field, and he shouldn't. He's a true 3-down back. Now, to your point, as far as being elite, he's not Saquon Barkley. He's not Todd Gurley. Like, he isn't those guys. So I can agree with you there that he's not elite. But what I think that people and you don't give him enough credit for is how good he is at every aspect of the game. And not just saying in a blanket statement, I always thought he was good, but not elite. Yes, but how good he really is. Because he is about as solid and as safe as they come in every area of the game. And that's exactly what you're looking for from your 3rd down back. And if you took him at 10th, 11th, or 12th in the first round of your rookie drafts, you just hit a home run, because this guy has proven to you that he can do it, and he shouldn't come off the field. And I'm hoping that Detroit, with rational coaching, sees that and actually takes Blunt off the field and gives this kid an opportunity to be the full-time running back and still find ways to incorporate Riddick, because they're the two playmakers in space. They should be on the field together.
So I'm just looking back at my rankings here from the summer, and let's just jump right into it. This is a great segue because I had Kerryon Johnson ranked 6th on my running back rookie board. So I had 5 guys, and I'll name them right now, that I had above them. Okay. So obviously I had Saquon Barkley 1, Nick Chubb 2, Darius Guice 3, Sony Michel 4, and I had Royce Freeman 5. Now, and Kerryon Johnson 6. Boy, did I screw up on Royce Freeman. Royce Freeman is not what I thought he was. And he's getting embarrassed by my boy, Lindsay. So, and Lindsay, I didn't even have ranked. I had him.
No, nor did I. He wasn't even on my board.
I had him.
I'll admit that.
I had him 13th. He wasn't even in my top 10. So I had Kerryon Johnson 6. Now the question is, you're going to ask me, right? Well, where do you put him now? Okay. Obviously, my top 3 does not change at all. It's still Barkley, Chubb, Guice. There's no reason to take Guice out of the top 3. It's just a lost year for him. It's over. He'll be back next year. Hopefully he'll be fine, and we'll start anew.
I actually did move Guice down to 4.
You did. And who did you put in 3? Kerryon Johnson.
And Kerryon was my 4 coming in. He was. Kerryon was always my 4, and you knew it. I had a man crush on Kerryon before the season started, before the preseason. I was on this guy. Like I was saying, pick up Kerryon later first round. It's, a slam dunk home run pick. He can do it all. And he was always my number 4. And I have since moved him to 3 because I see it. I see that his ability to play in every facet of the game, and you haven't seen that yet with Guice. So,
all right. So if I'm going to give Kerryon some love, you're going to give somebody some love right now.
Okay.
And let's just go through a couple of statistics here right now. Player A. See if you could jot this down real quick.
Okay, so we're talking about Philip Lindsay. Go ahead.
Player A. I'm not going to reveal height or weight because we all know that is a giveaway, dead giveaway.
No, listen, I know Lindsay was given spells as lead back. I know, and I totally understand. I totally understand where you're coming from, but the NFL is a different game than college. At 190 pounds, and you saw it this past week, they had the opportunity to give him the full workload, and they didn't. Booker was so heavily involved still, and that right there just shows you the cap on his ceiling. So you can't be that high on him because he's never going to return crazy numbers for you. I'm not saying, trust me, Lindsay is on my list. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have him ranked 7th now. Okay, so I am giving him love. I really am, because you watch him and you see the explosion, but he isn't ever going to get any higher than that. And I would argue I might move him to 8 and flop him with Penny, because right now I have him ahead of Rashad Penny. And Penny's a first-round pick, and we know what I think about first-round picks as running backs is pedigreed. I have him temporarily, and I'm thinking right now I would probably flip-flop them because of his tempered ceiling. I don't see any situation. I was shocked he even got 21 touches this past week. Like, I think that's the absolute most that he touches.
18 carries and a few targets. What more do you want out of a back? I mean, I get Booker was involved, but I mean...
Yeah, but it's a lot of manufactured. If you go back and watch the game, it's all onto the outside. And that he can't sustain it. He's going to get smacked by these linebackers. And at 190 pounds, you're going to feel it's not college anymore. These guys are fast, they're stronger, and they track you down, and they're going to hammer him. And once they get tape on him and continue to get tape on him and they can figure out the gap schemes, they're going to clog those holes. And you're going to run into the guys who are going to hammer him, and he's not going to make it. It's the same thing with Kamara. I was worried about Kamara in the beginning of the year. He's not built from a stature standpoint to handle that kind of workload. And that was 30-plus carries. Kamara can handle 20-plus. I don't think Lindsay can handle 20-plus week in and week out.
He can. I'm not going to go down that road. I agree. He can't.
So if your max is 16 touches, 16 to 18 touches, I just don't see the upside being that great where he should be that high in your rankings.
Yeah, and he's not that high in my rankings. I mean, he was 12th or 13th here before the season, so I'm going to give him a boost. I'll tell you in a second. And obviously, I'm not saying that he's better than Kerryon Johnson. Okay, so let's just make that clear. Okay.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Obviously, I have Kerryon Johnson right ahead of him, but if you're gonna give, if I got to give Kerryon some love, you got to give.
No, and you know what? It's fair, and Lindsey does deserve credit because watching him play, he looks like he's shot out of a cannon. Like he touches the ball and he looks like he's already at top speed. So I'll give him that. His acceleration is unreal. And if he has that hole, he's going to hit it and he's going to make a big play for you. And he's the kind of guy who you're going to rely on those yards because if he sees them, he can get them. He can get through that hole. Whereas Royce Freeman, so far this year, if the hole is there, it closes. It almost seems like it closes up before he's through it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the big difference.
So let's go into the rookie running back rankings then and re-rank them. So what would be your top 10 rookie running backs then?
All right. So right now I've got obviously Saquon 1. I've got Chubb 2, and I put Kerryon at 3 with Geis at 4. However, Chubb, Kerryon, and Geis are all in one tier for me. I still have Geis right. I mean, it was a hard decision to try to decide if I move Kerryon ahead of Geis. And again, I said it last week on the broadcast, don't stick to number rankings necessarily totally. Mm-hmm. It's all about the tiers, right? So Saquon obviously is in a world of his own. Then you have Chubb, you have Kerryon, and you have Geis. At 5, I have Michelle. And I feel like he's in a tier of his own. So he's in tier 3. And then I go into tier 4, which has Freeman, Lindsey, and Penny.
Freeman, Lindsey, and Penny. Okay.
Yep. So that's 6, 7, 8 for me. And then I go into, well below Penny. I think it just drops off. And it goes Rojo, Naeem Hines, and I'm still playing the upside on the cheat code with Kalen Ballage.
Yeah, I still got Ballage in there with Ito Smith. So, yeah,
I mean, Ito Smith, Warren, Kelly, and Edmonds are the only other viable backs I even see. I had a lot of love for Josh Adams, but I just don't see it.
I like Josh Adams' profile, not as much as you have before, but I like him. For me, not much has changed in the top for me. It's Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Darius Geis is still my third favorite back. And I love Sony Michel. So I've got Sony Michel 4, and then I got Kerryon 5. So Kerryon Johnson.
We're the same top 5, just not the same order.
But he moved up one spot for me. I mean, Freeman's taking a fall. Royce Fraudman is what I've been calling him, is an absolute catastrophe. I mean, it's just unbelievable how this guy, you take the touchdowns away from him and you look at the points he scored in PPR. It's atrocious.
Yeah,
so,
I don't think the line is very good though, and they're running him a lot inside. Like, I wouldn't look too far into it. I still have faith in Freeman, is what I'm saying. I really do. I still have faith in Freeman. He is a rookie. This line is just coming together. They're putting the pieces together, so I wouldn't look too far into it. And there's no pressure being taken off from the passing game whatsoever.
I don't like.
There really isn't.
I don't like what I've seen from him. And I had him number 5. So it just goes to show you how high I was on him coming out of Oregon. But I do not like what I've seen from him. And then I've got Rashad Penny, Kalen Ballage, Philip Lindsay, Kalen Ballage, Ito Smith. And I threw Josh Adams in there just for the hell of it. So,
and you took Rojo off your list entirely?
Yeah. I only put Rojo in there at the 10 spot over the summer because I had to. It's so funny how we had to.
I know.
None of us wanted to rank Rojo, but you have to rank him because Tampa Bay used their draft capital on him. And
it's almost laughable. They tried to make him the pass catching back when
in the preseason when he caught that one pass.
He didn't even catch any passes in college. It was laughable because that's the one thing in his profile. You were like, this dude catches 0 balls. And then Tampa Bay, being Tampa Bay, tries to make him their pass catching back. Now it's just no, Peyton Barber is definitely our workhorse. When they were reluctant to do it early in the season while Rojo was inactive, it was they almost wanted to leave the door open so that they could justify playing Rojo. And then they actually played him and they were nope, yeah, Peyton Barber, let's go back.
And Peyton Barber is going to carry the load the rest of the season now.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Especially with Fitzpatrick leading the way. That whole offense, it's incredible. And we could go right into Fitzpatrick here for a second. it's night and day. Mike Evans, they're down 34-16 or 36-14, whatever it was. And Winston gets benched, and Fitzpatrick comes in, and it was
72-yard bomb
right off the bat.
I think
Mike Evans.
We even in our Slack chat in the league that Russ runs, I even said, like, right after I got the news that Fitzpatrick was back in, I said Evans with the stock up, and then all of a sudden, like 5 minutes later, I was like, boom, there it is, 72-yard touchdown.
It's incredible. It's really something. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they didn't trade Winston. I thought they were going to get rid of him, but Fitzpatrick with Winston, with Mike Evans, wheels up for Mike Evans, wheels up for Deshaun Jackson, and Peyton Barber's going to lead them. I mean, it's just incredible. But Rojo, forget about it. It's not happening with Rojo. So that's, our rookie rankings, our re-rankings midway through the season. And before we go to wide receiver, let's just touch real quick on quarterback. There's not many, so we could breeze through them real quick. But
yeah, I think there's only 5 that are really worth talking about.
Yeah. I just want to touch on this guy real quick. Again, let me preface by saying this. We're talking about fantasy football here, folks. Okay. What I'm about to say has nothing to do with if I was running an NFL franchise. Fantasy football, my number one rookie quarterback going into the season was Lamar Jackson. And Baker Mayfield hasn't changed anything for me. It's still Lamar Jackson, number one. Baker Mayfield is number 2, with Josh Rosen number 3. Baker Mayfield lit it up in the preseason and made me very concerned about my selection of Lamar Jackson. But he has been meh. And, listen, I love Baker Mayfield. Okay, I'm not trying to knock him. But in comparison, for fantasy football purposes, I'm taking Lamar Jackson over Baker Mayfield because the rushing upside is astronomical, and he can win you games on the ground alone. So that's my top 3. I don't know if you want to go any farther than that with Sam Darnold or, never Josh Allen. But what are your top give me your top 5 quarterbacks.
So I actually really like Baker. I think it's going to be huge for him with, Hugh out and Haley out. I think it's, wheels up for Baker. So I still have Baker number 1. I had Baker number 1. I still have Baker number 1. I still have Rosen 2. And then I have Lamar Jackson slotting in at 3 with Darnold 4 and Allen 5. But Darnold has really impressed me. For a rookie quarterback, he's come in and just kind of quietly, there's not nearly as much fanfare with him as there is for Baker or for Rosen. And he's just quietly gone about his business. That Jets team is, I don't know. I love Bowles. I love Todd Bowles. I think he's, a great coach. He's not a man of many words, but I think he runs that organization very well from the head coach perspective. And, they just keep fighting week in and week out. I really like what Darnold's bringing to the table. I love what Crowell is doing there. Very sad news about Powell, but they have nothing in the way of weapons, and yet they're making something out of nothing.
Yeah, he's done a great job over the past few years with not much. And now, I like the rookie. I like the kid. So, okay, so let's move on to wide receivers. And obviously, I've beaten this drum enough. My number 1 wide receiver is Courtland Sutton. So before the season started, I had Sutton 1, DJ Moore 2, Anthony Miller 3, James Washington 4, Calvin Ridley 5, Christian Kirk 6, Traquan Smith 7, Dante Pettis 8, and, a boo-boo here, Jamon Moore 9, and DJ Chark 10. So before I re-rank them, you want to give your top 10 before the season?
Before the season, I had Christian Kirk at number 1, DJ Moore at number 2, Courtland Sutton at 3, Ridley at 4, Washington at 5, Gallup at 6, Traquan at 7, Anthony Miller at 8, Pettis at 9, and Callaway at 10. So that's where I was preseason.
And who are you going to take out of there and put in?
So I actually have Gallup way down now. I took Gallup outside of the top 10. I also took Pettis outside the top 10. And Miller is very close to falling out for me, even though he wasn't. I mean, he was at 8 preseason. He's now at 9. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm taking Jamal Moore out. And I guess I'll take Pettis out. I still like Pettis. I know Waldman's very high on him. I like him. I don't love him. But just to get MVS in there, playing that, Deshaun Jackson light role. And obviously, I guess we got to squeeze Antonio Callaway in there somewhere. But I don't think Kiki really gets in my top 10, honestly. I just can't see it, especially when Will Fuller comes back. So I'm just going to leave Kiki out of there. And I'm going to go Sutton 1 still, DJ Moore 2. And it's tough for me the rest of the way here out because I love all these guys. I love Traquan Smith, Christian Kirk. I still love James Washington and Anthony Miller. And I still don't love Calvin Ridley. I don't care. I don't care that he had, an awesome first 3 weeks. I'm sorry. He's still not in my top 5. I mean, where'd you have him, Calvin Ridley?
Preseason?
No, re-ranking the wide receivers now. Are you? So
I'll shoot out my rankings now. What I read was my preseason. So what I've got now is I've got DJ Moore at 1, Christian Kirk at 2, I got Sutton at 3, and then I sit Ridley at 4.
Why?
I don't know. I just think he's already kind of avoided the bust label that I thought he was going to be. Like, I thought he was literally maybe going to flame out of the NFL. Like, I didn't see it at all. It doesn't look or appear like Julio is slowing down at all. So as long as Julio is around there and can tilt the coverage, I don't see Ridley, really slowing up. And you can even see it with Sanu this year. Like, Sanu's production has come on. Like, with those 3 guys, or even if you have a viable third, I'm not saying Sanu is going to be there, but if you bring in another viable wide receiver and you've got 3 guys, they can't cover everybody, and Matt Ryan is a competent enough quarterback. That system spreads the ball around enough where I think Calvin Ridley, more than I like the player, I like the situation. And I don't typically tout, follow a situation. That's not really me. And he's clearly below the top 3 for me. But he is my number 4.
What's the real difference between like a Traquan Smith and Calvin Ridley? Because they're both in.
Well, Traquan's 5 for me, and they're in the same tier.
Okay.
So I will say that.
That's where
Traquan's 5, and they're in the same tier. Yep.
And Christian Kirk, right?
No, Kirk's in a tier up.
A tier up.
Kirk's with Sutton and Moore.
Okay. All right. Because I don't see a real difference between Traquan and Ridley. And I love Traquan, his athleticism. I'd rather have Traquan than Calvin Ridley because they're both going to be playing opposite of an X wide receiver. Neither of those guys are going to be an X wide receiver. So, I mean, I'd rather have Drew Brees than Matt Ryan, and I'd rather have that Sean Payton offense. So
no, and you know what? I would agree with that. The only thing I think is the difference is Julio has more of an ability to blow the top off. Like, he can run deeper routes and he gets more depth on his routes than Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas likes to sit down and find some space in the intermediate range. Like, Julio can pull coverage over the top, and if you have a double team, you're going to pull a safety with him. And then it seems like Calvin Ridley is just flying over in the middle in those intermediate routes, and that's where he's making his living. Whereas Michael Thomas likes to sit down in those zones, and Drew Brees is the kind of quarterback that can pick that apart. So, Thomas does like to sit in those zones, those intermediate zones, and Traquan is the guy who can blow the top off the coverage. So they're just they are playing similar, where they do have an X receiver across from them who, these guys are legitimate wide receiver ones. I think the difference is you're going to see the volatility more with a guy like Traquan than you are with Ridley. Ridley's the safer floor play. Traquan's the more boom or bust kind of guy. But I really, really still love Traquan's profile and his situation too. And that's why I have them in a tier together.
Yeah. And, if he can develop into that wide receiver 2 in that offense, I don't think Brees is going anywhere. And if he can,
Not with today's NFL. He could play till he's 45, like Brady. He really can. I mean, he's got another 3 years in him. He doesn't look like he's aging at all.
No. And we saw Kenny Stills as a rookie play the same position and be effective. I mean, Traquan has got, plenty of room to grow in that offense. So, okay. So Michael Gallup obviously is not in either of our top 10, right? Wide receiver.
Right. So after Traquan at 5, I've got James Washington at 6. I did put Kiki in here at 7, only because I think that offense is dynamic, and I think he's definitely going to be a safe floor play. He's definitely someone who, you can count on as a wide receiver 3 or a flex option, and he's going to fill out the depth for sure. And as the 7th wide receiver in this rookie class, that's a pretty good return on your value. At number 8, I have Callaway. He's been inconsistent with the drops and whatnot, but he's got a clear role now with Gordon out, and he's getting flooded with targets. It's just not really translating to anything, but I think the opportunity is definitely there. So that's like an opportunity to play. I have Miller at 9. Really, I was preaching this from the beginning is I didn't believe in the Bears offense, and I don't think Trubisky's a bad quarterback, but I think he's just league average. I think he can do more with his legs. And I think as he progresses, it's going to be not look to run first, but that's definitely going to be his outlet more than kind of the guy running the crossing route over the middle, which is what Anthony Miller can do and where he could be really successful. But I think, Trubisky's first instinct is to kind of climb the pocket and then get out of the pocket. So if that's going to be the case, I think that's really going to hinder Miller's. And I just really don't trust that offense. Allen Robinson isn't the X wide receiver, the number 1 guy that teams have to target in on like we thought he would be. And Trey Burton, got to be honest, still doesn't scare me. I think his production is just a product of the decimation at the tight end position and the fact that the Bears really have nowhere else to go. So I still think he's 3rd in that pecking order. And I would even argue 4th with Tarek Cohen getting so much receiving work. So I just don't see it with Miller. And then at 10, I got Chark. So he wasn't a guy who was in my top 10 preseason, but he moves up there. I think it's time for Jacksonville to make a switch and just commit to Chark and Moncrief at the outside.
Yeah, and they're going to need a new quarterback because Bortles, for me, doesn't do it. But real quick,
I didn't have Valdez-Scantling in the top 10. I don't, but I have him at 13. I mean, he's pushing it.
He's flashed. He's flashed.
Yeah, he definitely has flashed. I was never a fan of Jamon Moore, and I mean, I kind of called you out on that even during the process, Jamon Moore. But Valdez-Scantling, I mean, he definitely has flashed, but I'm not sure. It feels like people keep chasing that 3rd wide receiver in Green Bay, and with Allison back now, and it just seems like it's too muddied for me to give any sort of value where, you can expect them to be fantasy producer week in and week out. Well,
Allison did not get a large target share. I can see him falling down that depth chart significantly. You got Devontae Adams, you got Randall Cobb coming back. So, MVS could be, that 3rd guy, but
which is really the 4th because you got Jimmy Graham sitting there, so true. It's like, I love Aaron Rodgers. I think he's the GOAT, but it's like how much and how many can he sustain in reality?
Yeah. And just to piggyback on what you said about Chicago, I totally agree. I did not understand the Rams comparisons over the summer. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Trubisky is not Jared Goff, and nobody's Todd Gurley. But don't tell Bears fans that because stats don't mean everything. Trust me. I mean, Pat Stafford is a guy that I've been watching for 10 years now, and he's a QB1 every year, but he does it ugly. He makes it look pretty bad. And Trubisky, not that impressed with him either. And if he's another Stafford, Bears fans are in for a lot of heartbreak. So we'll see. And like you said, no Gallup for either of us. So we will not be galloping off into the sunset at the wide receiver position. However,
yeah, and that's just a lesson too in rookie drafts. That's just chasing. I mean, that was chasing situation all the way over talent. And he was, not someone who was really highly regarded from an athletic standpoint. So that is where you need to consider metrics and situation all in one and talent. I mean, he's, a somewhat talented guy, but he was never going to be the number one in Dallas. And if you thought he was, you were sorely mistaken. They were always coming back to the well for more help.
Yeah.
And, I didn't necessarily know it was going to be Amari Cooper, but I knew that they were coming back. They were not going to commit to him as their one. And it was just, that had, overpick written all over it. That was a huge avoid for me during the rookie season.
Well, like you said, the number one wide receiver in Dallas right now is Amari Cooper. I didn't really get to talk much about him because I was away, because that trade happened over a week ago. But Amari Cooper with the Cowboys, it's very interesting to listen to what people are saying about this. Mixed reviews. You've got obviously the pro Cooper camp is going to flip it one way, and the people like me who are anti-Cooper have a different perspective on it. But let's just remember here that Derek Carr is only 2 years removed from his MVP, candidate season. And, I know he's not looking good this year, but neither is Dak Prescott. And he's not a bad quarterback, Derek Carr. And honestly, he's got a big arm. He's got a bigger arm than Dak Prescott, who never pushes the ball down the field anyway. So, you're leaving Oakland with a guy who's a gunslinger as your quarterback, and you're going to Dallas, where their whole offense is revolved around Zeke and the running game and the play action pass. And people mention all the time volume. Oh, he's going to get more volume now because he's in Dallas. And but really, is he really going to get much more volume? I mean, he's not going to get like 10, 15 targets a week every week. I mean, they don't throw the ball in Dallas. So I don't get why all of a sudden now Amari Cooper is going to flourish in this offense when he was, he was so oppressed in Oakland. And I don't know. I'm just looking here. I mean, for me, it's the same. It's a wash. Cooper was the X wide receiver in Oakland. Okay, fine. Now he's the X wide receiver in Dallas. I don't think it's an upgrade at quarterback. And I don't think it's an upgrade as an offensive system for wide receiver. The person he's going to help here the most is Zeke Elliott. So they finally have like a legitimate, dare I say it, wide receiver, somebody to throw the ball to in Dallas that's going to help Zeke out in the running game. But I just, listen, he's not a wide receiver one. He's not ever going to be a wide receiver one. If you've got him in your lineup as a 3 or a 4, fine. I get it. You flex him out. But this Dallas offense is not going to throw the ball like people think just because Amari Cooper's in Dallas. It's going to go through Zeke in the running game. So I've heard your take already. You probably disagree. What do you think? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, before I get into the fantasy impact, I do want to address one thing, because you said this trade's got mixed reviews. As a Cowboy fan, and as a pretty realistic one who thought that they were only going to win 3 games this year, which they have, so there's no guarantee that they don't still only win 3 games this year. I do want to say that people are misconstruing this trade. They're saying this is the dumbest trade ever for Dallas. They gave up a first. Look, Philly gave up a third. These deals were constructed in 2 entirely different mindsets and ways. Philadelphia, like I was mentioning before, is a 8-week rental with Golden Tate. Now, they may change their mind, but as it was constructed right now, it was orchestrated as an 8-week rental. And if they end up extending him, they're going to have to do some serious cap work to make that happen. Dallas acquired Amari Cooper with a first under the intention that they are going to sign him long-term. So he will be a Dallas Cowboy for the next, it seems like at least 4, 5, probably 6 years. So these 2 deals are 2 total opposite ends of the spectrum. People are saying that Dallas made a stupid choice because if they're going to go for it, why would you go get Cooper? They are not contending this year. They don't. I'm under the belief that they do not believe that they're actually contending. This deal was made for the future. Just like firing their offensive line coach is a decision that they made for the future so that they can get Mark Colombo, a rookie coach, some experience in the back end of the season as they move forward to next season. And that's why they brought in Hudson Houck to mentor him for these last 8 weeks so that he's ready to go for next season. They are going to try to make some sort of window out of Dak's rookie deal, which I think they should. Dak, I've said it on here, is not a great quarterback. I don't believe that he's even necessarily a good quarterback. But if you have even an average quarterback on a rookie deal, a 4th-round rookie deal, and you can take a run at it with a running back and an offensive structure like they have with the offensive line and a running back like Zeke, you do it. And so this deal is built for the future. So people are misconstruing this, that it's a stupid deal for Dallas. They paid a first. That I'm going to disagree with.
Yeah, but here's the deal. You just admitted that this is a lost season for Dallas. They're not going anywhere, and they're going to have a top 10.
No, they're not, though. I think they're probably at this point a 6 to 8 win team, right, and they're going to be right smack dab in the middle.
I don't know about that. We'll see, but they're on pace right now to have a top pick. So they gave away, okay, fine, a top 15 draft pick. So you're giving away a top 15 draft pick in a class in 2019 that's going to be very, very good at the wide receiver position.
But here's the thing. How do you know that? Because everyone thought Treadwell and Doxson were going to be good, right? Like, wide receiver is one of the most difficult. You even see it with the Patriots. It's such a difficult position to pinpoint and to actually project out. Like Will McClay, I am telling you right now, the fact that this guy is turning down GM jobs speaks to how much he respects Jerry Jones and how much they must be paying him. Because if anyone in the NFL deserves to have a GM job that's not a general manager, it is Will McClay. 100%. I trust Will McClay. As long as the Cowboys have Will McClay on staff, I 100% trust their draft process. As soon as they lose him and it becomes into the Joneses' hands, I'm scared to death for my Cowboy fandom. I really am. But as long as Will McClay is around, I 100% trust his judgment. And if you think that he didn't do his homework on the 19 class of wide receivers, you're out of your mind. And the fact that Philly was ready to offer a second with their cap situation, knowing that they probably would have to restructure everything to keep Amari. You had the Colts offering a 2nd-round pick. There are other franchises in the NFL that see the talent that Amari Cooper is. He is a talented wide receiver. And regardless of the Cowboys system, they needed a number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah, but
this now gives them one for the next 5 years. They're giving up a rookie pick for one of the most difficult. They're going after receiver help. There's no question about it, right?
I get it. They need the help, but you're talking about a top 5. You're going to get one of the best rookie wide receivers coming out of college next year.
Yeah, but
you'd rather have Amari Cooper?
I mean, the only player that you could entice me with over him is probably N'Keal Harry, maybe Brian Edwards. But Brian Edwards isn't even in the 1st-round discussion right now. So if you could get him in a second, all of a sudden you've got Cooper and Brian Edwards, like that's a wide receiver core right there.
Brown, you've got Anthony Johnson.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee. AJ Brown's a slot wide receiver. You already have Cole Beasley sitting there, and AJ Brown, there's no guarantee he even plays football.
I don't know. I mean, it's going to end up being a high draft pick for me. I mean, just look back at this past draft. So you'd rather have Amari Cooper than DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Courtland Sutton, who are the first 3 wide receivers off the board?
Honestly, in this Cowboys system where Dak needs a wide receiver that can separate, yeah, I would. I would. I think he's a better fit for this system. Not that they throw a lot, but I think they need a very clear wide receiver who's elite at getting separation. I think that's Cooper. And you've seen it with Cooper. Like, he has been productive in this league, and people are so quick to forget because of his struggles the past 2 years. But guess what? Like, with those inconsistencies, he still has the traits and he still has the flashes of a number 1 wide receiver in this league. So if you're not comfortable with what's coming into the draft, or you're not comfortable that you're going to be able to nab him, because if people need wide receiver help, they are going to move up for N'Keal Harry. The Cowboys are not going to part with those if they're trying to build a window. I don't think it's the greatest move in the world. If they could part with a 2nd, I would have been a heck of a lot more comfortable. But I also don't think it's this dumb deal the way that it's constructed. I don't think that people calling the Cowboys idiots and stupid for doing this deal are on point either. Like, I'm not a huge advocate of this deal. I don't think it was a great one, but I also don't think it was stupid. And I understand where they're coming from while they did it.
No, it's not stupid. And I'm saying this as a person who's not an Amari Cooper fan. I mean, he still has plenty of years left in the league, but at what level? And I personally wouldn't give up a top 15, dare I say, top 10 draft pick for Amari Cooper, because it comes out of desperacy. Like, they just were so desperate for a wide receiver in that offense that I feel like they.
But that's my thing.
They overpaid. And
I don't think
that's
they
the
are
issue.
that desperate. Like, I really don't think that they think they're contending. Like, and that's the thing.
No,
that's the reason where I trust their processes. Like,
yeah, no,
they've
made
made pretty sound decisions. Like, I get out of desperation for a wide receiver, but I would rather take the known commodity. If a guy like you have a guy like Will McClay on your side who's doing his homework, and he probably the thing that everyone's talking about from this draft is the depth at the wide receiver class. So you can get a guy like Amari with your first, and then go back to the well and get another guy at wide receiver, and all of a sudden you're sitting with a core of Cooper, maybe a Bryan Edwards, a Gallup, and a Cole Beasley. That's a heck of a receiving core to roll out with Zeke Elliott and that offensive line.
Amari Cooper has not proven to the NFL yet that he is the alpha dog. Okay. And that's what you're paying. When you're giving up a draft pick that high, you're paying for an alpha dog, and DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, I'm taking those guys over Calvin Ridley. And those are guys that just went last year. We don't know yet. It's too early in the process. It's October. We don't know, as far as the prospects go for next year. There's always people that come out of nowhere, wide receivers that come out of nowhere. So to say that he did his due diligence, I get it. I'm sure he did, but it's October. We got plenty more of college football to play.
And I would argue on the other side of the coin too. Yeah, it's just October. You don't know where this pick is going to fall. You can't assume it's a top 10 pick and just hold on to it when you have a shot to go get a guy who can change around your franchise and change the offensive outlook that you have. And now you have a guy who's going to play. Well, now you have a guy who's going to be in the system for 8 weeks, learn and build chemistry with Dak Prescott. You have a situation that's stable now moving forward. You know what you're looking at. You have clarity. Like, you have clarity at the position now. You know Amari Cooper is your number one.
Yeah,
you paid him.
Clarity. You're going to get a guy who shows up when he wants to show up, and sometimes he doesn't show up. I mean, we know who Amari Cooper is right now. We've had 4 years to watch Amari Cooper.
See, I don't agree. I just don't agree with that statement. I mean, even when you look at the advanced statistics, like, the dude is still separating at a 3.6 yard clip. That's a number right there. Like, you're telling me he doesn't show up. He's winning on his routes.
It's not producing. I mean, it's not producing on the field. He can separate.
And that's partly his fault with inconsistencies and drops, but that doesn't mean it's all on him either. And it doesn't mean he's not showing up. Like, he's one of the top running or wide receivers in the league at separating. He is winning at the top of his routes.
Right. But a lot of wide receivers can separate, but if they don't catch the ball, I mean, that's a problem. Or if
and you know what? I mean, I'm not saying this isn't coming without risk, and I'm not saying this is going to end up panning out and they're going to be right, and there's not going to be a wide receiver who's better or a wide receiver who they could have had that was better. But if you sat here 2 years ago and said, I wouldn't trade a top 10 pick, would you? You're really going to give up a top 10 pick for an Amari Cooper when you could draft Laquan Treadwell? I mean, 2 years ago you would. Well, I know, but I'm saying the general consensus was that you would rather have a Treadwell, right?
Who? What general consensus?
I mean, the general consensus around people who were in the dynasty community and the NFL community and as a whole. If you took Amari Cooper now and took that class and boosted it up 2 years, and Treadwell was coming out this year and Doxson were coming out this year, you would have people saying you would rather have Treadwell than an Amari Cooper because Treadwell is coming out. There's no guarantee at the wide receiver position. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Obviously, rookies are a gamble, but I don't know. I've been so done with Amari Cooper. I can't say it enough. So for me, I would rather have the draft pick, but I'm not a Cowboys fan, so I don't got to live with it. You do. So.
That's true.
So that'll be it for our rookie re-ranks and just recapping the trade deadline of this past week. But before we end the show, it's Halloween, and I want to put you on the Halloween hot seat real quick.
Let's do it.
Real quick. Better horror villain, Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees?
Jason.
Better Halloween candy, Snickers or Reese's Buttercup?
See, that's a hard one because I think they're both overrated.
Really?
I think they're both overrated. Give me a Baby Ruth or $100,000 over both of them.
Interesting. You're going out of the box there. For me, it's Reese's Buttercup. But better monster, vampires or werewolves?
Vampires. Because you can play a vampire as an adult while you're giving out candy and pretend you're drinking blood, and really it's just wine.
True. I go vampires too. Best song, Michael Jackson's Thriller or Fear the Reaper?
Michael Jackson's Thriller. That's an easy one.
I gave that one. And lastly, best movie, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, or Michael Myers' Halloween?
I'll go Halloween on that one.
Elm Street for me. I love Freddy Krueger. He's my favorite. And
I gotta be honest, never watched any of them. So you could take that out.
You're
I'm
missing
not a
out.
Halloween movie guy. I don't know why. I just picked one.
You don't
Because
like
I went with what was the theme song. I never watched them.
sit down one night with the wifey, put on some Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, she only likes to laugh. She doesn't like any of that crap.
So, well, that'll be it for the Halloween hot seat real quick. I just wanted to give a shout out here. We, a few weeks ago, got over 100 subscribers, and we're pushing 200 right now. And I just want to give a shout out and a special thanks to Anthony Servino from FF Faceoff, Grant Viviano, Dynasty Red Zone, Dynasty Dorks, my boy Chris Valentine, JFab, Roman Minicki, and Jonathan Jimenez. Thank you, all you guys, for the help, for getting us over that century mark. And now we're pushing 200, trying to get over 200. And please write into the show, email us for questions. We'll answer it on air. TheNFLMAX@gmail.com. And for every email, we're going to do a raffle every week for t-shirts. We got t-shirts right here. We'll be raffling off t-shirts every week. Just submit questions to the show, and we'll send you guys out a t-shirt once a week for the rest of the season. And that's pretty much it. Just wanted to thank everybody for listening, for watching, and subscribe. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and help us out and help us get some more subscribers for the show. And we'll keep pumping up some content for you guys every week. And that'll be it for the show. Thanks, everybody out there. And this is Ewok Juggernauts for the Hot Pineapples. Everybody one clap. Thanks, guys.
Right? Amari Cooper gets freaking traded to the Dallas Cowboys, and you're not here.
It's a dream come true for you.
Oh, I love it. I am buying the jersey as soon as it comes available. If you really want to heat him up, just mention Ajayi and how he sucks.
I don't know why. What is his love affair with JJ?
I have no idea.
He's not even that good. Oh, that's right, because he ran for 200 yards, what, twice in a season?
Yep.
You got the number crunching by Nick. Nick's number crunching.
Doesn't that look like a haul now? I mean, and people were knocking me for it, but you know what? I'm going to take the sure bet, the young, the wide receiver with the elite market share. Like,
I don't know what Brown I was thinking. He demolished his team. Like, he was a legit playoff team. I know he was aging, but God.
My hot take is
it's happening. It's happening. The ponies are going to make a run here. I'm the guy who hates Latavius Murray. I traded away Latavius Murray to him. So this is the guy who hates Latavius Murray. And I'm telling you, you screwed up. He scored 7 points this week. Latavius Murray dropped 20.
no, yeah, that's
Oh, it's just ridiculous.
Dude who said Vance McDonald's a lock and load tight end, so.
Okay. In that offense? Do we get points for that?
I think so. Max stat, isn't it?
Points per stiff arm?
Points per ass drop.
Do you want to talk about carry on while we're on in Detroit? Or do you want to just move on to Philly and go from
That
there?
doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do. We can argue about him later.
Okay.
Just leave me enough time.
I mean, we're on the topic. We're talking Detroit. We might as well just get it out of the way.
All right, we can argue.
Let's do it. Let's just go right into it.